I got pictures in.
Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary to you.
What are you doing in
God, we thank you for this special time, for this special couple. We just ask, Lord, that you would continue to watch over them and bless them. Thank you
There's a microphone system here. It's in that closet and it's locked. So I don't talk really loud. So if you want to hear me, then try to be quiet a little bit. But what I wanted to do before we have cake and do other stuff is kind of share some thoughts or memories or stories or anything that you have about Mom and Dad. And tell them what they mean to you. I just want to say that I really appreciate them. They were great parents. They used to let me run the streets when I was younger, and I could just go out and not even have to come in until dinner time when I was hungry or stuff. That was pretty cool. But I've never been good at stories, but I've gotten a story that I thought about telling. And it was when we lived in Madison, Wisconsin, and we was in the apartment complex. We lived there. I was about 6 years old. I was probably about Jacob's age or a little bit younger, my grandson. And I was dressed up as an Indian. I was playing out in the neighborhood or around the complex dressed up as an Indian, had the makeup on and stuff, and I'd go to the bathroom. So I thought, well, the best place to go is in these bushes over there. So I went to the bushes, and some lady caught me. And she took me back to the apartment, and after she left, I think I remember Dad laughing, and I don't know if he was laughing at me. I may not even remember the story. It might just be a dream, but I don't know if he was laughing at me or laughing at the lady or what. But apparently, I didn't get in trouble for that, so that was pretty cool. He's trying to he don't remember it, so I don't know who's I'm remembering something that didn't happen or what. Anyway, Mom and Dad mean a lot to me, and I love them a lot, and they've been the best parents that you've had, and I just want you guys to know that. And if anyone else has something to share, personally, I'd like to see swap box of cake again for 6 years. That would be awesome to see it.
Yeah.
But if anyone has a memory or a story or something they'd like to share with Mom and Dad, why don't you do it right now? And I'm sure they appreciate it.
I have one real quick that I'm just going to say real quick. I work at Alton Memorial Hospital, and when Virginia had her first stroke, she was in our hospital, and she was very, very seriously ill. And I am sitting next to a gift from God because He healed her. And I can honestly say that the day she was transferred out of our hospital to St. Louis, I had no hope for her. I knew that the only hope for her was not through the medical profession, but that she was in God's hands. And I can remember praying to God, God, please watch over Virginia. And so when you talk about God's miracles and all the miracles that you read about in the Bible, she is one of God's miracles, and I know her, and I feel so privileged to know that because you don't get to see a miracle every day, and Virginia is a miracle of God.
At that time, I'm her sister. At that time, she said, was too sick to pray. I don't know why God answered. And we said, well, you were prayed up before you got sick. That's why God healed you. She is a miracle.
Well, out of Virginia left here and went to Oregon. And when they got out to Oregon, they said, well, what church? They went to the Church of God out there, and they said, what church were you from? And Virginia said, well, I was at the Meadowbrook Church of God. And Albert said, Cloverleaf Golf Course.
Set your church down. Albert, Virginia, and I have taken a lot of trips together back over the years. One year we were out in Oklahoma, Cherokee Lake, and we drank some water that wasn't too compatible with our system, and Albert got very sick. Our plans were to go to my wife's parents for the weekend. we stopped at a motel that night, and Albert was so sick, he says, Glenn says, take me home. Says, if I die, I don't want to die on the road.
I have a little story. When Brenda and I were young, I just thought of something else. When Brenda and I were young, they used to throw Beth back and forth in their hall at their house. It's embarrassing, but we did. Look how good she turned out. So he wants to toss your kids around. Brenda and I went with Brenda and her family to up north somewhere to a relative's house around Chicago area. Yeah, I don't know, it was an aunt. And so Beth was little, she was probably about 2 or 3. And Brenda and I were sitting on one side of the living room, and Albert was reading to Beth on the other side. And Brenda and I was just kind of watching him. He was reading out loud, and Beth was kind of far away from him, so Albert was leaned way over with the book, reading out loud to her. And Beth, we were watching, and Beth was just like looking around the living room. Well, first she was looking at the book, then she started looking around the living room, and then she started wiggling around, and Albert just kept reading and turning the pages, reading out loud. And then Beth got up and left. And Albert stayed leaning, and he just kept reading. And then pretty soon he straightened up and sat straight up, and he was reading out loud and turning. Brenda and I were sitting across the room just laughing our heads off. I don't even know, I don't think he knew we were there. He was putting on a show for us. I don't know. I always think about that. That was one of the funniest times.
Well, my name's Betty, and Alan and Jimmy are my aunt and uncle. And when we were growing up, I haven't seen these guys in probably 30, my cousins in over 30 years.
Careful, you're dating
I
yourself.
know. I'm only 29, but I haven't seen them in 30 years. But I remember with Beth and Uncle Al, they used to play slug bug. Remember playing slug bug? Anytime you saw a Volkswagen, it was a slug bug. Only I don't allow the hitting in my house because she was mean. She hit hard, and she hit Uncle Al hard, and he would hit back. I just remember that. We just don't play slug bug that way anymore because I remember being slugged by Beth. So, and I think Uncle Al taught her that.
My most memorable thing with dealing with Al was we went on this caravan to West Virginia to take Brother Jones home. Fred's already shaking his head. And what are you driving? What was that thing you were driving, Albert?
Well, it's Brother Jones'
Yeah.
No, it was a truck. Yeah.
With a pickup truck with a shell on it.
Yeah, it had a shell on it.
Overweight. And he had
motorhome. It was a motorhome.
And Brother Jones decided he needed to go to a Walmart place and buy everything he could. He's going to West Virginia where they don't have any Kmart's very close. And this thing is, I can't believe it. I'm taking up the rear with Fred's car. Rich is driving a Volkswagen. Fred and Herman are driving the truck. Was there anybody else with us, Fred?
No, we had CVs.
Yeah, but the whole thing, I don't know how you drove the thing. I mean, it was turned this way all the time. And we blew out 1 or 2 tires. But that was quite an experience, wasn't it, Albert?
It sure was.
It'd make a good stupid movie.
10-hour trip, 26 hours.
Yeah, Brother Jones says his mom will have supper for us that evening. And so I finally told him, I said, we'll get there at 4 o'clock in the morning. I remember pulling in and Herman asked me, he said, Gary, wait, he says, Canada, what did you guess for time? I said, 4 a.m. He said, well, it's 3:46. So I missed about 14 minutes. So there wasn't any supper waiting. But we all got back in one piece, and it was something to remember.
Well, aren't you going to tell about the ticket? You got the ticket?
I've never had a ticket in my life. That's God's truth. And Fred tells me everything. I said, I'll take the first turn driving on the way home. You guys can sleep. So Fred said, I've got the radar detector on. Everything said it's cool. So I'm driving 80 miles an hour. It's a Cadillac, so I mean, it rides smooth. Pretty soon I see this policeman go on the other side, and he turned around and said, hey, Fred, you got to wake up. I said, I don't think that radar detector's working. So I got a ticket. That's the first one I ever got. but it definitely wasn't the last one.
Well, Albert, I've got to say, one memory that I have of Albert, this had to be in the mid to late 60s. I was part of a music committee at the Meadowbrook Church, and we decided that we needed a choir, and so we were going to form a choir group, and some of the music committee members said, well, let's do a little survey, find out what kind of talent we have in the congregation. And so we devised and drafted a little questionnaire, and we handed it out to anybody in the congregation that would take it. And then we got them back. We sat in a meeting one evening, and I happened to pull one up that was signed by Albert Augustin. And one of the questions on the questionnaire is something to the effect, what experience do you have in singing or in music? And Albert's answer was singing in the bathtub and playing the radio. I wondered, can you hold your skills in that area? Albert, you still sing in the bathtub?
Well, it's the shower now. And it's a television.
Sometimes get a good laugh because usually later in the evening, Virginia goes to bed and Al goes out and will sit with his little laptop computer. And he puts on his headphones and he sings to some of his favorite songs, which I think he thinks he can only, he's singing to himself and no one else can hear him. But he sometimes sings loud enough that we can hear him in the other room, and it sounds something like, so we give him a bad time. Actually, we got to hear that coming out in the car, too. But I also wanted to say, 10 years ago, we had a party very similar to this, and you never know what can happen in 10 years. I was 10 years ago when I got up to say a little bit of something about my mother and father-in-law. I got a little bit choked up, kind of like I'm almost getting right now. I really appreciate my mother and father-in-law. My parents, of course, were precious to me. My mom is gone now, and my dad, and I love them to death. But my mother and father-in-law have another dimension that they've added to my life. The spirituality of their family has really always impacted me a lot. Questions that I always pondered in my mind, I can say out loud to my father-in-law, Al, and ask him, well, what do you think about this? And, I know that he's wise, and he's got a lot of thinking that he's done over the years, and he can give me a good answer, good guidance, good advice. And I always really appreciated that. My mother-in-law, Virginia, is just a dear person. With my mom gone, she's taken over that mother role, and I appreciate that. I just, wanted to say after 60 years, what a great accomplishment, and I really appreciate you two both for being my mom and dad.
Let me tell you, this lady over here isn't always serious. Now, all of you heard stories on Albert, but let me tell you one on Virginia. 55 years and a month ago, this lady and I got married. And we had rented an apartment and stocked it with groceries and everything, and supposedly nobody knew where the apartment was. But when we went to go to bed that night, Our bed had been short-sheeted, and guess who did it?
I'll say one more thing. You see the way Albert's sitting there and doing like this? First time I was ever on the church council, each person represented something. Well, it'd come around, it'd be Albert's turn, and Albert would go. Again, I'm thinking, I'm young, I'm thinking, come on, Albert, come on, come on. But I found out that if you were willing to wait until he put it all together in his mind, ready to tell you, it usually was something that was important, something that God was in it, and that it was worth hearing. You might have to wait a little bit, but that it was always worth hearing. And he did a thing shortly before they, I guess before you guys moved out there, about, you remember this, about who was our enemy and how do we treat them? Do you remember doing that? Well, the ones that were there do remember. It was since the war started. You must have been home on vacation or something, but you did a thing about that. It was really good. But I remember that. I used to think, oh, Albert, just get it out, get it out. But then I learned as you get older, you realize that if you wait, you'll hear stuff that's worth hearing.
I have a memory from years ago with my little cousins, all of us girls being crowded on Grandma and Grandpa's couch with Uncle Albert. Out of all the books to have in there, all of us girls wanted him to read a bird book, this little blue bird book. And he would just flip through the pages, and I don't know if he was serious or just making up noises, but he would do impersonations of all of these different birds and say what they were, and had all of these details, and all of us girls were just in awe of this. That was probably the only time that we didn't want to head straight to the table and eat Grandma's food. Was we wanted to have him just continue to read the book. So I really cherish that. We have a book like that at home, and every time I look at it, I'm like, I remember Uncle Albert doing this. Good memory.
I'm going to date myself too. Of course, I've been in the family for 55 years. Well, no, 52 years now. Gosh. But I can remember the first time that I ever had a birthday cake at a birthday party. Virginia and Jane and Alan and Danny took us out to the park over here at O'Fallon, Illinois. And they had a birthday cake for me. And they had birthday presents for me. And I grew up a very poor person in Mississippi. We didn't have anything. And I never had a birthday cake until these ladies gave me a birthday party. And I'll never forget that, because that made my day, because they thought enough of me to do that for me. And I really appreciate it very much. I don't even remember it. You don't? Well, it makes it personal on me.
All I remember is that the roast hot dogs falling in the dirt.
The only thing you remember is Al, Virginia, and I being out and rescuing the hamburgers. Remember that, Albert?
That's my Uncle Dan, and we have the same birthday. Yeah. Anyway, but it's been 4 years now since Mom and Dad have moved out to be with us, and I just want to say thank you for letting them come. I know you miss them, but we have just enjoyed having them out. It's nice to be able to sit around the table and all of us eat dinner together and to hear stories. I'm glad I have Jay there to remember them, because my memory's horrible. Dad can tell stories, Mom can tell stories, and I enjoy them at the time. I just don't remember them very well, but it's just been a joy having them out, and I'm glad we got Mom back out here, because she was not wanting to come, and I told Britt, I said, we may have to let Mom know about this. It just may not have to be a surprise, but we hung in there, and I think she was surprised when she came in. I was dropping them off, so I didn't get to see, but
She said she was shocked.
She was shocked. Okay. But I just want to thank all of you for coming out. It's so good to see all of you. And Mel Myers, thank you so much. You've been the best of friends. And Bert and Sunny for encouraging all of them to have this, because I was thinking, oh my goodness, it's just going to be so much work, but I'm so glad we did it, because I'm enjoying myself and I want to go back and finish eating because I'm really hungry.
I want to thank Ruth and myself, and also my wife for that cake.
Yeah, isn't it gorgeous?
I just have a question for Al. Having worked with your wife for about 10 years or so, and having her every morning come in the office and say, now this week we've got to do, meaning that I've got to do. Is that how she treated you too? Did she say, we've got to get this done, Al? Did she do the same thing for you too, or was I unique? Is that how she handled it?
Well, I remember Virginia doing that for you.
I think she did it for you too.
Yeah. She still does that for me.
Good for her. No, it's been a real joy to have known them over the years. One of the things that Al used to do, we have New Neighbor pads at church, and about every Sunday he'd mark, there's a little category that says, once a pastor's visit. Every week he'd mark a check mark by once a pastor's visit. I finally figured out what he wanted to do was go play golf together, so. But it was a joy to work with Virginia, and she did do a marvelous job, and Al, his ministry at the church, and you think about what kind of a legacy do you leave behind? Am I really making a difference? And I can truthfully say that Al and Virginia have made a difference, are making a difference, and will continue to make a difference in the lives of the people that they touch. And I've been blessed to have been touched by their lives as well. Thank you.
With that said, on a serious note about my aunt and uncle, it has been a lot of years since I've seen them, and more since I've seen my cousins. And Uncle Al has been faithful in emails and emailing, and that's how I've stayed in touch with the family. And I live in Colorado, and my brothers and sisters are all scattered, but his emails, I get them, and they're just such a joy. And their faith and their inspiration, I can always remember growing up their faith in God. And today I can say that my parents are walking an amazing life, and I know that my aunts and uncles were always an inspiration on them, and I love you guys.
Still, please.
Uncle Albert and Virginia used to come and visit us because Uncle Albert's mother lived with us, my grandma and grandpa. Mother and father lived with us. And we have lots of old movie pictures. And I remember Uncle Albert being goofy and fun. But goofy and fun. And I'm like Brent. I remember things, and Mom's always telling me I dreamed it. I feel like my whole life is a dream because so I saying I dreamed it, but I know that he was goofy and fun because it's on the videos we'll be watching. But I also remember that Uncle Albert always took time to talk to me and call me by name and ask me questions. And as a little kid, you don't expect that from adults. You just don't. And he was always, I remember him doing that. And I remember Aunt Virginia always being a happy, smiling person. And I remember visiting them here. I remember how awful hot it was here. And we didn't want to go outside. I remember that. But I remember being in their home and hearing Aunt Virginia sing while she was in the kitchen, working in the kitchen, singing songs, hymns and songs. And that impressed me. So those are my memories.
I'm the baby of the family, so I don't remember too much about when they came to visit when we were in the home, because I was still quite young. But I know what I saw on the video, the movies too. But it's awesome that Janice said the same exact thing that I wanted to say, that, you know, I just remember Albert taking the time, Uncle Albert taking the time to spend with us. And every time anybody asks me, how did you learn that card thing? How to shuffle the cards like that? I said, Uncle Albert taught me.
How to shuffle the cards.
I thought you were Church of God.
Must be an Uno.
Well, I wasn't going to say much, but I'm going to say go to bed. And I said, well, it's past my bedtime too, but I stayed up. Anyway, I just really appreciate and love them both. And when Brent was talking about what good parents they are, I lost my mom in high school. And then they were there for me when my dad died. And I feel like they've kind of been my parents too. And Virginia's given me a lot of good advice over the years, a lot of years. And one of my favorite things she'd say to me now, just get over it, because there's nothing you can do about it, and it's going to get better. And Al has turned me into a Republican. Just for the presidential election.
Don't forget you're in Illinois now. I can tell a little something on I'm Virginia's little brother. I'm not quite as old as she is, even though I've lost my hair, I am getting older. I don't know if she knows, but when she was in high school, before she met Al, she was dating this guy. We lived in McPherson, Kansas. They didn't have all the fancy electronics back then. So I took an earphone and converted it to a microphone, and I hid it behind the couch. And I ran a wire upstairs and I hooked it up to this old radio I had to make a amplifier out of it. And I sat up there in my bedroom when she had her boyfriend there, and I listened in on her
And I was in the kitchen peeking through the keyhole.
Sneaky, aren't they?
I would just like to thank Al personally, because when we were homeschooling, we homeschooled our son only a little less than 2 years because he didn't really enjoy it. But he was never a big social life. Josh wasn't. And during the homeschool time, Al would come get him and take him to play golf once a week. And Josh still remembers that, and it's just neat that whenever you've got a son, that they can see somebody that's older, and Josh really respected you and appreciated the time that you spent to take him and do that. We knew you enjoyed it too, but we looked at it as something you did for us, and we really appreciate that. And my probably most favorite thing about just the two of you as a couple is, we interacted with you at church and church events all the time. But my most special memories with you are when I would come visit you at your house after you got out of the hospital, Virginia, and just watching the two of you as a married couple for that many years, and the honor and care that you showed each other. You didn't look like you were impatient with each other, or that you had gotten so used to each other that you didn't honor each other. And it is so evident how much you still love each other, and that is such an inspiration.
Hey Al, do you remember your canoe trip? Do you remember that?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay. Do you remember who you brought? Do you remember your buddy Joe?
Yeah.
Okay?
I remember Glenn getting me.
No, Glenn wasn't there.
I know.
Oh, okay, all right. Do you remember what your buddy Joe brought?
Yes.
Yeah, he brought a cold 6-pack of beer, which you don't do that on a church guy camp out. I mean, I even know that. And we had an exhaustive 9-mile trek down the river plan, and some of the families that are here tonight were there. I know Jay and Beth were there, and Steve and Tina were there with their kids, and we had our kids, and I'm sure there were some others. And Joe was proud of his cold 6-pack that he brought, and you could hear mothers gasp in the crowd. Well, I don't think Al and Joe realized that this was not going to be a leisurely day on a pond. This was going to be an exhaustive trip down the river. And at the end of that day, we had had canoe spill, we'd had people get minor injuries, and everybody was sunburned and tired. And we got back to camp. Al wanted his pillow. Joe wanted his cold beer. By then, the cold beer had been taken somewhere else and had been dispatched to another place. We're all tired. But Al, I want to thank you. I sat in on your Sunday school class for years. And I knew when you started rubbing your chin and words weren't coming that something profound was about to be said. And like Gary, those are the times I listened intently. And thank you. And Virginia, thank you too.
I want you.
I'll try to do this without crying. Al was my counselor in junior high, and that was what, 78? And I remember him then as I do now. He was such a gentle spirited man. I thought I was going to be the only one to cry. But we moved out to Meadowbrook about going on 13 years ago, and I see my husband talking to this gentleman out in our backyard, and I thought, boy, he looks so familiar. I thought, boy, he looks like Mr. Augustin, from school. And sure enough, I walked out there, and it was him. And him and Virginia has been such wonderful neighbors to us. We miss him very much. He taught Jackie how to ride her bike, and sitting on the swing in the backyard, just so many memories. Sorry. We just miss him a lot, and you have just given us so many memories that we'll never forget. And I thank both of that.
One of the things that I love most about Al is his voice. I love to hear him read, and I love to see him when he acted in one of our Christmas programs. When my daughter Erica got to be in there with him, and he was kind of a grandfatherly figure, and I don't know, your voice has always inspired me, and it was strong, but yet gentle, just like you are. And I'll never forget the sound of your voice, because I loved it. And Virginia, you were always so sweet, positive, and very capable and loving. And I will never forget you for that.
I'll never forget every time I went to her house, she had chocolate chip cookies. Fresh baked.
And I still make that same recipe.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'll have to come to your
make it.
house.
Where do you live?
Yeah. Where do you live? the things about Virginia that I remember was that she was never afraid to laugh at herself. And that just endeared her to me because I did a lot of really stupid things myself. So I didn't feel like I was quite the only person that was doing crazy things, because Virginia would tell me about the things she'd done. And she'd say, don't worry, I did da-da-da-da-da. And I thought that was really awesome. And after my mom was killed in a car wreck and things, Virginia talked to me a lot about that. Told me about when her mother was killed in a car wreck, right? And it just meant a lot to me. And she took special time to talk to me. And I just loved the feeling.
Grandma, Grandpa, I love you guys so much. I miss you guys a lot. You guys are so supportive. You have been enough for me and my whole family. Just for everything. I remember you supporting my music, going to my band concerts, choir concerts, going to cheerleading, going to everything that I was involved in, just being there. And I love you guys for doing that. I love coming over to your house and playing games. It was fun playing hand in foot this weekend even. I don't know. You guys just are so loving, unconditionally. Everybody. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're going through. You guys are still positive and still love no matter what's going on. And I love you guys for that. You guys are just a really good example, and you give me hope, because marriages aren't easy for sure, and kids aren't easy for sure. And you've put up with your kids, and you guys have made your marriage last. And I just love you guys, and thank you.
I remember when my girls started going to youth conventions, I thought, well, they're not going without me. So I went as a counselor, and Virginia was still a counselor then, and I realized she was the life of the party. She was just bubbly and a lot of fun. So a group of us ladies went to Gatlinburg first. We did it twice, but the first group, I think it was Bonnie and Norma and Nancy and myself and Grace Hall. Linda went on the second trip, but the first trip, no, you weren't off. And one fun thing that we did, remember that? We built a pyramid, and remember that, Virginia? Down in Gatlinburg, when we stayed in that chalet, the day before we left, we decided to take a picture, and we actually built a pyramid. And also, another thing we did down there was we had a watermelon, so we were spitting the seeds out to see who could spit them the farthest. But Virginia and Al's always meant a lot to our family, and we appreciate you and we miss you.
Anybody else? If not, we're going to cut the cake and,
I want to say something.
okay.
The first year I went to SIU, I went to the off-campus and didn't have a vehicle to drive at that time. And so my dad, mother worked out something with Al to take me to SIU, because he was a counselor at East Junior High at the time. And so he picked me up in the morning and dropped me off at SIU, and then when he got off school and to leave, he would pick me up on the off-campus. And we would head home on 140. And almost every day when we got through, by Gordonmore Park now, we got that way, got farther along, when we had to stop at Stanley Road for a stoplight or something, there would always be somebody passing on the right on the dirt road that was the side of the road, like a shoulder. And Albert would say, well, just look at that. He said, we'd talk about that, how the person was breaking the law and all this stuff. And he said, there's never a cop around. There's never a cop around. These people do this. And there'd be 2 or 3 people every day almost. So I don't know if we were in a hurry one day or what happened, but Albert did it. Albert decided to go around on the right because there was never a cop there and nobody was ever looking. And so after Albert did that, we saw the red lights. And so he got a ticket. And I was starting to touch it myself, but I couldn't do it much. We sort of got done right back and forth that year with each other. And I always admired Virginia for her ability as she did secretarial work at church. It was just amazing, all the things she could remember, and she had all these papers in her purse, and she'd write stuff down on these little papers and hope she didn't lose them. And she also made very good cookies. We appreciate you guys a whole lot and stuff like that.
I'd like to say something. I just want to give glory to God for all the times He has sustained my sister through all her trials and all the times He's healed her body. And thank everyone here for your prayers. I know that a multitude of people have prayed for her over these last years. And I want to personally thank you, Al, for standing by her side through all these trials. And I know it's been hard and tough. And I appreciate it so much. God bless you.
You gotta feed him a piece, Grandma.
Okay, tell him we have to help him. Tell him we have to help him.
I think you should shove a big piece in his face.
Hey, tell him. He doesn't know. We have to help him. We have to help him. We have to serve all the
Samantha, get your hands off of those mints.
serve.
John,
Yeah, tell people.